The great hall of the Galactic Marksman Guild shimmered with banners and glowing insignias, as representatives of every star system gathered to witness the beginning of the Championship of Champions, a place where the best snipers of the galaxy tested their skills against one another and earned glory that echoed across empires. The air vibrated with confidence and arrogance as the alien marksmen polished their rifles, boasting of their laser-guided precision, their plasma-scoped rifles, and their ability to strike targets from unimaginable distances. These were beings who had trained for decades, honing every twitch of muscle and every blink of their eyes to become legends of accuracy among the stars. They laughed loudly at each other's stories of victories and kills, but all that laughter grew louder when the doors creaked open, and a single human stepped inside carrying nothing more than a crude slingshot. He walked with calm steps, his boots echoing across the polished floor as though he had not noticed the mocking glances and cruel smiles that followed him. His name was Elias, a wanderer from the forgotten edges of the galaxy. His clothes were plain, his hands rough, from years of work and survival, and in his hand hung a weapon so simple it looked like a child's toy. The crowd erupted in laughter. The tall insectoid Kethrian clicked its mandibles in disbelief, and the scaled warrior from Dravik spat sparks of derision. A human had come to face the galaxy's most advanced warriors with a stick of wood and a strip of leather. The guild master, a towering four-eyed figure, tapped its ceremonial staff against the floor and called for silence, but even then whispers rippled through the hall. Elias stopped at the center of the arena and looked at the gathering with eyes calm and unshaken. There was no arrogance in his posture, no grand gestures. He simply stood there as if he belonged. The guild master announced the opening of the championship, detailing the trials to come: holographic targets moving faster than thought, cloaked objects hidden behind energy fields, shots made in zero gravity. The challenges were designed to push the limits of skill and technology. But the human's weapon looked powerless. Against such trials, the crowd expected an easy elimination and entertainment at the expense of the human. When Elias unstrapped the slingshot from his belt, the laughter rose again. One alien sniper leaned over to his rival and declared that the human would be lucky to hit the floor, let alone a target. But Elias only bent down, picked up a small polished stone from a pouch at his side, and fitted it into the sling. His hands moved with a natural grace, a memory of endless practice carved into every muscle. The guildmaster gave the signal, and the first challenge began. Holographic targets flickered into existence across the chamber, darting and weaving with incredible speed. The alien snipers raised their rifles, beams of energy cracking through the air with deadly precision. Targets exploded in showers of light. The crowd cheered each dazzling display of firepower. Then Elias raised his slingshot, pulled back the band, and released. The stone flew faster than the eye could follow, and struck a target dead center, shattering it into fragments. The laughter ceased for a heartbeat, then erupted once more, the aliens convinced it was luck. But Elias did not smile or frown. He simply loaded another stone. The second target appeared. He fired again, and the stone cracked through the hologram. The audience shifted uneasily, now their laughter uncertain. The third stone flew, then a fourth, each hitting its mark with the same calm certainty. Elias showed no strain, no boasting. He was simply doing what he knew best. The guildmaster leaned forward, intrigued, its four eyes narrowing as it studied the human. Some in the crowd stopped laughing and began to whisper to each other, suspicion flickering in their minds. Was this truly luck, or was this man as dangerous as he appeared? The snipers themselves exchanged nervous glances, their pride beginning to feel the weight of challenge they had dismissed too quickly. Elias lowered his slingshot and stepped back to await the next trial, the echoes of stone striking targets still ringing in the chamber. The human had not said a single word yet. His presence spoke louder than all the rifles blazing around him. The championship had only begun, but already a sense of unease crept into the hearts of the galaxy's best snipers. They had laughed at the human and his toy, but a seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing swiftly in the silence between each heartbeat and every stone released into the air. Elias stood quietly at the edge of the arena as the next wave of competitors prepared for their turn. The alien snipers busied themselves with their sleek rifles, adjusting their plasma coils and calibrating their targeting systems. Their eyes kept darting toward him, Though their laughter had quieted into uneasy murmurs, the human had shown them something they had not expected. Accuracy without technology skill, without enhancement's instinct, sharper than their machines. And for the first time, many of them began to wonder if the stories about humans being unpredictable and dangerous were more than just exaggerated legends. The guild master called for the next trial, and the chamber shimmered as the targets changed. This time the challenge was more difficult. The shapes were smaller, faster, and capable of shifting directions mid-flight. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see the human stumble and fail. Surely, no crude slingshot could match such speed. One of the alien champions, a tall serpentine being, named Sereth, hissed a taunt across the hall, telling Elias that his luck would not last, that the next round would expose him as a fraud. But Elias gave no reply. He simply picked up another smooth stone and ran his thumb across its surface as though remembering something long ago. For a moment his thoughts drifted back to his childhood on the rugged frontier world where he had grown up. His village was small and poor. They had no rifles, no advanced weapons. Survival depended on creativity and nerve. As a boy, Elias had spent hours with a slingshot his father had carved for him. He had hunted small game to feed his family, striking birds from the sky and knocking creatures from the treetops when other children played with toys he had practiced. With stones under the hot sun and cold nights, he had learned patience, focus, and the ability to wait for the perfect moment. His entire life had been training without him realizing it. The signal for the trial echoed across the hall. The alien snipers raised their weapons. The air filled with the whine of charging rifles. The targets shot forward, zigzagging unpredictably. Beams of light flared across the chamber, each shot striking near perfect, but with slight misses creeping in as the difficulty increased. When it was Elias's turn, he stepped into position calmly. He inhaled and exhaled as if he had all the time in the world. The first stone launched with a snap, struck its target even as it veered to the side. The second followed in rhythm, a strike clean through the center by the third and fourth shot. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were silent, watching with growing disbelief. Sereth fired again and missed a moving target. His scaled face twisted in fury and frustration while Elias continued with his stones, never hesitating. His accuracy unshaken, the guildmaster's eyes gleamed with fascination. The whispers in the audience now carried awe rather than scorn. A group of young cadets near the back leaned forward, hanging on every moment as if watching history unfold. By the end of the trial, Elias stood with his slingshot hanging loose at his side. His pouch of stones, lighter than before, every single target he had faced lay shattered. The chamber remained hushed for several breaths until finally a roar of astonishment swept through the hall. Half the crowd cheered while the other half whispered fearfully that this human was no ordinary challenger. Sereth slithered forward, his tail striking the ground, his voice rising in anger as he accused Elias of trickery, of hiding some unseen device in his weapon. But when the guildmaster inspected the slingshot, it found nothing more than carved wood and stretched leather. Elias met Sereth's glare with calm eyes and gave a small shrug as if saying without words that skill needed no machine. The serpentine sniper recoiled, insulted by the simplicity of it. The other competitors shifted uneasily. Their pride wounded their certainty. Shaken, the human who had entered as a joke was now becoming a storm. None of them had prepared to face. The guildmaster raised its staff to signal the closing of the second trial, and its deep voice rumbled across the chamber, declaring that the human competitor had passed. With flawless execution, the crowd thundered with mixed cries, some in admiration, some in fear, others in resentment. But all were united in one truth. The human was no longer a laughing matter, and as Elias walked back to his place quietly, his face calm as stone, the galaxy's greatest snipers realized that their supremacy was under threat from the simplest weapon, wielded by the calmest hands. The arena lights dimmed and the third trial was announced with a gravity that silenced even the most arrogant voices among the gathered marksmen. The guild master spoke of the challenge as one that separated true snipers from pretenders. For this time, the targets would not only move but would appear and vanish in sudden bursts of cloaking, fields designed to confuse even the most advanced sensors. It was a test of patience, timing, and pure instinct. The alien champions adjusted their rifles once more, their fingers twitching with nervous anticipation while their eyes kept shifting to Elias, who remained seated quietly polishing a smooth stone. With the corner of his sleeve, his calmness unsettled them more than any boast could have. When the trial began, the chamber filled with flashes of light as the first competitors took their turns. The cloaked targets blinked in and out of sight. Zipping across the air like ghosts, rifles flared with bright energy beams. Some targets fell. Others escaped untouched, and frustration began to spread across the alien faces. Those who had trained for decades cursed as their advanced scopes struggled to lock onto the sudden flickers. The crowd cheered at every hit and groaned at every miss. Tension rose with every round as prideful champions were humbled by the challenge. Then Elias rose from his seat and stepped forward with the same slow, measured stride he had shown. Before he slipped a stone into the sling, stretched the band back, and waited while the crowd murmured their disbelief. Surely now the human would fail. Surely his crude weapon could not match the tricks of vanishing targets. The guildmaster gave the signal, and the air shimmered as the first target flickered in and out. Elias did not move at once. He waited, his breathing steady, his eyes following the rhythm of appearance. Then, with a sudden release, the stone snapped through the air and struck the target. In the brief moment it reappeared, the crowd gasped. Second target appeared on the far side, darting unpredictably. Elias turned smoothly as though guided by instinct and released another stone. The hit was clean. The target shattered before the rifles of the others could even adjust. When the third and fourth targets came in rapid succession, Elias struck each in turn, never once hesitating. His slingshot sang in rhythm with his heartbeat, every release perfect, every strike undeniable. Soon the chamber echoed with the sound of targets breaking, one after another. The alien snipers watched in growing despair, their hands tightening on their rifles, their pride eroding with every stone Elias fired. They who had laughed at the crude weapon now whispered to one another, wondering how such precision was possible. One of the insectoid marksmen muttered that the human must see patterns in chaos that others could not. Another hissed that he must have trained in ways beyond their comprehension. But no matter the theories, the truth was plain to see. The human was succeeding where advanced technology faltered. By the time the last target flickered into view, the hall had fallen completely silent. Elias pulled back the sling, paused for a breath, and let the stone fly. It struck the vanishing image in its final instant, and the chamber erupted in thunderous sound. Some voices shouted in admiration, others cried accusations of sorcery, but no one could deny the evidence. The guildmaster struck its staff upon the ground, calling for order, and declared with solemn authority that the human competitor had completed the third trial. With unmatched perfection, Elias lowered his slingshot and returned to his place without expression. He had not spoken a single word throughout the contest, yet his silence carried more weight than speeches. His calm defiance told every rival that their weapons, their training, and their arrogance could not guarantee victory against the instinct and resolve of a human. The crowd, which had begun the day with laughter, now sat with unease, and in many hearts a seed of respect had been planted, though it burned against their pride. Among the competitors, one figure in particular seethed with fury, Rethor the Varkun sniper, whose reputation was carved. From centuries of victory, his clawed hands clenched around his plasma rifle, his eyes burning as he watched Elias with hatred. He would not let this human humiliate their guild without challenge already in his heart. He swore to crush the human in the trials to come, yet even as he plotted his revenge, a shadow of doubt crept into his thoughts for the human. With the slingshot had turned mockery into fear, and the trials were far from over. The dawn of the fourth trial brought a heavy silence to the arena. As if the walls themselves waited in anticipation of what would unfold, the guildmaster announced that this stage would test ricochet precision, the ability to strike hidden targets through angles and rebounds, a skill requiring calculation. Beyond instinct and yet demanding instinct beyond calculation, the targets were placed behind obstacles, metal walls, curved shields, and energy barriers that required a sniper to strike at impossible paths. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see if the human slingshot could match what even the best rifles often failed to achieve. The first competitors stepped forward, proud and confident. They adjusted their scopes and input complex angles into their targeting systems. Beams of plasma lanced through the air, bouncing once or twice, but more often scattering wide. Their shots were near perfect, yet the hidden targets proved cruel. Only a handful were destroyed, while the rest glowed defiantly. Untouched frustration spread quickly across the ranks of the champions as their calculations failed to bend reality to their will. When Elias rose to take his turn, a wave of murmurs spread through the chamber. His slingshot looked too simple, too crude for this kind of trial. He picked up a stone, weighed it in his palm, and studied the obstacles with a quiet intensity. No device helped him. No digital display mapped his path. Only his eyes, his memory, and the patience carved into him. Since his youth, he drew back the band and released. The stone flew in a wide arc, struck a metal plate, rebounded at a sharp angle, and shattered the first hidden target. A ripple of gasps moved through the spectators and whispers filled the air. As Elias calmly loaded another stone, he fired again. The stone struck one wall, then another, bouncing twice before hitting another concealed target. His rhythm did not falter. He fired a third, a fourth, and each time the stones curved and ricocheted exactly as they needed to, as if the human could see paths, invisible to all others. The alien snipers stared in disbelief. Some gritted their teeth, others exchanged glances heavy with dread. Their technology designed to calculate these very paths had failed. Yet this man with bare hands and instinct succeeded. The insectoid sniper Kethrian, who had once laughed the loudest, now stood in silence, its mandibles twitching nervously, as though reconsidering every joke it had made. As Elias continued, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter that once filled the hall was gone, replaced by the sound of each stone striking each target, falling one by one until nothing remained unbroken. The guild master, who had seen countless tournaments, leaned forward, its 4 eyes gleaming with rare fascination. It raised its staff and declared that Elias had cleared the 4th trial flawlessly, but the hall did not erupt into celebration. Instead, there was a deep tension, like a storm building. Rethor the Varkun stepped forward, his armored body towering over others. His voice like a growl echoing across the chamber, he accused Elias of trickery, demanding the guildmaster search him again for hidden devices. The staff inspected the slingshot once more, but found only wood and leather. Rethor's rage grew hotter, his pride wounded before the crowd. His clawed hand tightened around his rifle as though he wished to end the challenge then and there. Elias looked at him, but his expression never changed. He offered no words, no excuses, only silence that cut deeper than any retort. The calm of a man who did not need to defend himself because his skill spoke louder than accusations. The crowd watched the exchange with bated breath, torn between fear of Rethor's fury and awe for the human's composure. The guildmaster silenced the hall with a sharp strike of its staff and announced the 4th trial complete. The competitors were dismissed to prepare for the next, yet none could truly rest, their minds burned with questions, and their pride weighed heavy upon them. Elias returned to his place quietly as if nothing had happened. But the truth was clear. He had turned the impossible into possible, and the balance of the entire championship had shifted. The galaxy's best snipers were no longer competing to prove their supremacy. They were competing to survive the humiliation of being bested by a human with a slingshot. The 5th trial loomed over the competitors with a heaviness that pressed into every corner of the arena, for this stage was not simply about skill, but about endurance, precision under pressure, and the ability to withstand both physical and mental strain. The guildmaster announced that the challenge would require hitting a sequence of targets at different ranges, some appearing close enough to feel their shimmer, others set so far away they were little more than specks in the void. It was a gauntlet meant to wear down even the most seasoned snipers. The champions straightened their backs, their pride demanding that they endure, but already many felt the weight of failure from earlier rounds. The alien snipers went first, one by one. They raised their rifles, each shot a flash of light and a roar of energy. Some struck true, but fatigue was evident. Their hands trembled from the hours of testing, their eyes strained against the shifting patterns, their breathing came too fast, even as they tried to control it. Each miss echoed like a bell of shame across the chamber, and whispers of doubt spread through the onlookers. If the greatest of them struggled here, what chance did a human with nothing more than a slingshot have? Elias rose from his seat when his name was called, and though the air was thick with scornful stares and expectant smirks, his movements were steady and unhurried. He picked a stone from his pouch as if selecting a memory, each stone polished smooth by years of habit. He stepped into position. lifted his slingshot and inhaled slowly when the first target shimmered into view close, enough to tempt even the nervous. He pulled back and released the stone, struck with a clean snap, and the target shattered before it could vanish. The crowd reacted with a ripple of disbelief once again, but still they waited to see how he would fare. With the longer ranges, the second target appeared farther out. Elias adjusted without hesitation, his arm moving in a rhythm learned under the skies of his youth. He released, and the stone arced high through the air, then fell like a star, striking the distant target dead center. The hall gasped. Some clutched their rifles as if needing reassurance that technology still meant something, but the human's calm expression betrayed no struggle. As the trial continued, the sequence grew longer, the distances greater, the patterns more erratic. Yet Elias matched each with a patience that unnerved the other competitors. He never rushed, never second-guessed. Once the stone left his hand, it was as though the path had already been written. The crowd began to fall into silence, the jeers of earlier rounds replaced by the sound of stones flying and targets breaking one after another. It was not luck, it was mastery. Rethor the Varkun stood nearby, seething, his massive claws flexing with fury. Each time Elias succeeded, he had been the undefeated champion for decades, his name feared across the guild halls, and yet here he was forced to watch as a human dismantled that legacy with nothing but wood, leather, and stones. His pride burned hotter than fire, and he muttered curses under his breath, vowing that when his chance came, he would end this humiliation and crush the human into dust. The guildmaster struck the floor with its staff, signaling the end of the trial, and declared the results. Elias had once again completed the challenge without a single miss. The roar that followed was unlike any before it. It was not laughter, and not pure applause, but a storm of emotions. Some shouted in admiration, some hissed in resentment, and others simply stared in stunned silence, as if their understanding of skill itself had been broken. The cadets in the back looked at Elias with wide eyes, whispering to one another that they had witnessed something that would change the very legends of the guild. Elias returned to his seat, his pouch of stones lighter, but his presence heavier than ever. He did not bask in the attention, did not gloat or boast. He simply waited as he had always done, his silence more powerful than any victory cry. The other snipers sat restless in their places, shame gnawing at them and fear creeping into their thoughts. If a human with a slingshot could outlast them, what else were humans capable of? What other instincts lay hidden within their kind? Rethor glared at Elias with such hatred that the air itself seemed to tremble, and many in the hall knew the true storm was yet to come. The sixth trial began in the cavernous arena with an intensity that made every heartbeat thunder like a drum. The air was electric and thick with anticipation, for this round was not merely about precision or range, but about creativity and adaptation. The guild master had crafted a course filled with moving targets that appeared and vanished unpredictably, shifting obstacles and environmental hazards that would confound even the most experienced marksman. The alien snipers exchanged wary glances, some muttering calculations under their breath, while others simply clenched their weapons tighter, knowing instinctively that familiarity alone would not carry them through. Elias stepped forward as the arena lights flickered across the shifting walls, his slingshot in hand, his pouch of stones secure at his belt. He surveyed the course with calm eyes, noting the angles, the speeds, and the trajectories of each target. He felt the rhythm in the chaos, as if he could read the whispers of the wind itself. The first target appeared darting behind a column. The other competitors raised their rifles, taking careful aim, but the target shifted unpredictably, and many missed. Some even had their shots deflected by the transparent barriers designed to trick the senses. Elias adjusted his stance and let his stone fly in a perfect arc. It curved around the obstacle, struck the target with a satisfying impact, and the crowd murmured in disbelief that a simple human weapon could achieve what so many sophisticated rifles had failed to do. The second target was farther and moved faster, weaving through a set of rotating holographic panels meant to distract and confuse the shooters. The alien snipers groaned, some cursing their own eyes, while others tightened their grips in frustration. Each shot they fired either struck empty space or was blocked by the barriers. Elias remained calm, his breathing steady, his arm moving in a fluid motion that betrayed no hesitation. He calculated the movement instinctively and released a stone. The projectile danced through the holograms, grazed the edges of the barriers, and found its mark. The panels quivered slightly, as if acknowledging defeat, and the arena echoed with gasps, some of admiration, others of disbelief, and some of grudging respect. The next series of targets were even more elaborate, appearing in succession across varying distances, some hidden behind thick smoke, others moving unpredictably like living shadows. The alien snipers began to show signs of fatigue. Their eyes strained, their muscles tensed, their concentration faltering. Despite years of experience, this was not just a physical test. It was a trial of endurance, ingenuity, and adaptability. The human, with his unassuming weapon, continued to move with poise, each stone released with perfect timing, each trajectory anticipating the chaos ahead. He struck targets that had seemed impossible to hit, some barely visible to the naked eye, and each success unnerved the other competitors, making their own abilities feel suddenly inadequate. Rethor the Varkun seethed as he watched Elias's performance, his pride shattered with every successful shot. His massive frame tense with anger and disbelief. He had not been defeated in decades yet. Here he was watching a human dismantle every challenge with a weapon deemed primitive by the guilds of the galaxy. His thoughts were a storm of fury and humiliation. He swore silently that this human would not triumph in the end, that someday he would restore the honor of his kind and crush this audacious human in a display of vengeance that would be remembered across worlds. Despite the pressure, Elias pressed forward with quiet determination. He did not rush nor falter, his eyes constantly scanning for the next anomaly in the sequence of targets. He adapted to every new challenge with remarkable ingenuity. One target appeared to vanish completely into the darkness of the arena, yet Elias estimated its trajectory and released his stone. Before it even became fully visible, the projectile struck with perfect accuracy, sending the target spinning and the audience into shocked whispers. The other competitors were now forced to acknowledge his mastery, some hiding it behind gritted teeth, others unable to speak their minds, overwhelmed by the spectacle unfolding before them. As the trial neared its end, the remaining targets became more unpredictable, some moving in erratic patterns, others appearing for mere fractions of a second, requiring split-second timing to strike. The alien snipers struggled, their rifles heavy in their hands, while Elias continued to flow effortlessly through the course, each stone released with purpose and confidence. The tension in the arena was palpable, every eye fixed on the human who had transformed a humble slingshot into a weapon of precision that defied logic and expectation. When the final target fell, Elias lowered his slingshot and exhaled slowly, his expression calm as if he had merely taken a casual stroll through the arena. The guildmaster raised his staff and the crowd erupted in a mixture of astonishment and awe. The alien snipers looked at one another in disbelief, unable to comprehend how one human with such a simple weapon had outperformed them in every imaginable way. Whispers of his skill spread across the arena and into the guild halls beyond, marking the human as a legend whose name would echo through generations, a living reminder that mastery often transcended technology and that underestimating humans was a mistake that no one would forget. The seventh and final trial was unlike anything the guild had ever presented before. The arena transformed into a labyrinth of illusions and moving platforms suspended over a void that seemed bottomless. Alien snipers eyed the setup with apprehension. Even the most seasoned competitors were uneasy. Their weapons were advanced rifles with targeting computers that could calculate trajectories faster than any human mind, but here the guild had designed a trial that tested not just precision, but intuition, creativity, and adaptability. All things humans were rarely credited with in galactic lore. Elias stepped onto the first platform, his slingshot ready, his pouch of carefully selected stones at his side. He did not flinch at the dizzying height or the ever-shifting paths he studied. The patterns, the gaps, the shadows, and the fleeting glimpses of his targets. He knew that each decision would cascade into the next, and that hesitation could be fatal. The first target appeared, a luminous orb darting between platforms. The alien snipers fired simultaneously, each shot guided by their computers. Yet the orb twisted and turned in ways that confounded even their most advanced tracking systems. One by one, their shots missed or collided harmlessly with the walls. Elias waited for the right moment, his eyes narrowing just slightly as he timed his release. The stone left his hand in a graceful arc, spinning, Through the air with perfect timing, it struck the orb, causing it to shatter in a burst of colored light. The crowd erupted in awe, murmurs rippling through the stands as the first human success in this unprecedented trial became evident. The alien snipers were taken aback. Their pride stung their calculated methods, failing against a human armed with nothing more than instinct and ingenuity. The next series of targets were far more devious, appearing in rapid succession. Some camouflaged against the shifting floor patterns, others momentarily phasing in and out of visibility as holographic duplicates. The competitors began to panic there, rifles clanking and buzzing as their targeting computers overcompensated in desperation, while Elias moved with astonishing fluidity, jumping from platform to platform, releasing stones with perfect arcs, each one striking true. Despite the speed and complexity of the targets, the human adapted to each new challenge with ease, as if he could see through the chaos and anticipate what came next. Rethor fumed, watching his carefully honed skills crumble before his eyes. He could not understand how a human could outperform centuries of training and technology. He gritted his teeth and fired his last shot at a target that had just appeared, only to watch it spin away untouched. The arena echoed with whispers that this trial might never have been conquered in the history of the guild, and yet here was a single human doing the impossible without hesitation or fear. The final target was the most difficult, a massive shifting orb suspended in the center of the arena. It moved unpredictably, its surface refracting light and projecting illusions of multiple copies. The alien snipers hesitated, unsure which was real, their computers whirring and overheating from the calculation demands. While Elias took a steady breath, he analyzed the movement intuitively and selected a stone with precise weight and shape. He calculated the angle in his mind, let go at exactly the perfect moment. The stone cut through the illusions, bypassing the holographic duplicates, and struck the real orb, dead center. It exploded in a spectacular display of light and sound. The crowd roared their applause, shaking the arena. The guildmaster raised his hands, acknowledging that the trial had been completed perfectly. Elias landed lightly on the platform, at the center, his expression calm and composed. The alien snipers lowered their weapons in awe and disbelief, realizing that they had been bested not by technology or brute skill, but by human ingenuity, patience, and adaptability. The guildmaster approached Elias, placing a hand on his shoulder, proclaiming that the human had achieved mastery beyond expectation. The murmurs of awe grew louder, as whispers spread that humanity was a force underestimated at their peril. Rethor stepped forward, his pride wounded but his respect undeniable. He nodded once at Elias, a silent acknowledgement that the human had earned victory fairly and brilliantly. The arena filled with cheers, the alien spectators realizing that they had witnessed something extraordinary. A human had proven that even the most advanced snipers of the galaxy could be surpassed by skill, focus, and creativity that defied their assumptions and prejudices. As Elias walked from the arena, the crowd continued to cheer his legend, cemented in the history of the guild. Whispers spreading across planets and systems that humans were far more than myths. Stories of their cunning and unexpected mastery would be told for generations. The other competitors left, humbled their confidence, shattered their understanding of the galaxy, forever changed. They had laughed at humans when they were thought simple and primitive. But now they knew a single human could surpass the greatest of them with nothing more than a slingshot determination and intellect. That day marked the beginning of a new era in the guild, the acknowledgement that humans were not to be underestimated, their potential limitless, their ingenuity unrivaled, and their courage unmatched. The legend of Elias, the human sniper, with a slingshot spread across the galaxy, inspiring awe, fear, and respect wherever it was told, and ensuring that no one would ever laugh at humans again. The final challenge had passed, yet the echoes of the arena lingered in the minds of every being who had witnessed it. Whispers traveled faster than light across star systems that a human had done what no alien sniper had ever achieved, and that stories of his cunning and precision would be told in awe for generations to come. Elias stood alone, on the central platform, the wind of the void brushing past him, the slingshot in his hand looking almost insignificant against the backdrop of stars, yet imbued with an aura of unmatched mastery. Every motion he had made, every calculation he had taken had flowed naturally, as if the universe itself conspired to allow him to succeed. He felt no triumph or arrogance, only the calm certainty of one who had fulfilled his purpose around him. The alien snipers looked on with a mixture of disbelief, envy, and respect. Their sophisticated weapons and centuries of training had failed against instinct and intuition that could not be quantified. Their laughter at humans had been replaced with stunned silence. The guildmaster descended from the stands, moving closer to Elias, his robes flowing like a river of color. His eyes gleaming with recognition, he spoke without words. His nod conveying everything that language could not. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not with fleets or superweapons, but with skill, patience, and creativity that defied the expectations of empires. Entire races had underestimated them, believing strength was measured only by technology or raw power. Yet here stood proof that the mind of a human could outmatch the most advanced rifles, the deadliest calculations, and the sharpest instincts of countless alien snipers across countless star systems. The whispers became stories, and the stories became legend of a human who wielded a simple slingshot like a conductor, wielding a symphony, orchestrating every strike with perfect timing. Rether approached slowly, his pride battered but his respect genuine. He extended a hand in acknowledgement of the victory achieved through talent, focus, and a vision no one else had dared to imagine. The other snipers followed suit, many of them bowing their heads, some shaking in disbelief at the simplicity of the weapon that had undone their confidence, yet all of them recognizing the extraordinary nature of the feat. The arena, that had been a place of competition, became a monument to the arrival of humanity on a stage. They had long been dismissed from the name. Elias was etched into the collective memory of the guild, the symbol of unpredictability, brilliance, and the enduring power of ingenuity. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer in recognition as tales of the trial spread across the galaxy, inspiring humans and aliens alike to rethink what they believed about strength, strategy, and the measure of a species. From that day forward, no one in the galaxy laughed at humans for their simplicity or their apparent weakness. The legend of the human with a slingshot became a beacon of caution and admiration, a reminder that even the smallest tool in capable hands could change the outcome of impossible challenges, that the underestimated could surpass the mightiest, and that intelligence and creativity were forces as potent as any weapon fleets or armies could muster. Elias walked from the arena unhurried, and composed his mission complete, leaving behind a galaxy forever altered in perception, respect, and newfound awe. The story of that human sniper traveled from system to system, from council chambers to training halls, from quiet taverns on distant planets to the command centers of the most formidable fleets, inspiring the young and humbling the experienced, teaching all that strength could not always be measured in firepower, that patience, precision, and daring could shift destinies, that the galaxy itself was alive with possibilities no one had yet imagined, and that humans were a force that must be acknowledged and respected. The end.